Purity has never been an abstract ideal. It was born from a biological reality, the danger of contamination, the proximity of death, the necessity of vigilance. Its original meaning was literal, cleanliness as survival. Only later did it drift into metaphor, detached from the dirt and blood that once defined it. The turning point came not from theology alone, but from disease. The bubonic plague did not merely decimate populations, it rewired civilization's understanding of matter, life, and order. When the plague arrived in the 14th century, carried silently in the fur of rats and the bite of fleas, it introduced a terror that defied explanation. Invisible contagion spread through contact and proximity. The body itself became suspect. The association between filth and death fused with spiritual fear, and from this fusion the modern language of purity emerged. Rats became symbols of pestilence and moral decay, their physical threat reinterpreted as divine punishment. The material world became moral terrain. To clean was to redeem, to purge was to purify. Yet the lesson that plague had offered was not symbolic. It was practical. The rats did not represent sin, they carried it. The danger they posed was microbial, not metaphysical. But because early societies lacked the scientific vocabulary to describe infection, they filled that gap with theology. Contagion became corruption, and maintenance became morality. The rat, once a natural adversary, became an emblem of evil. The real work of vigilance, inspection, cleaning, repair, was displaced by rituals of exclusion. The plague had taught the world to fear impurity, but not to understand it. Centuries later, that confusion remains. Our technologies, our institutions, even our politics still echo the same misplaced language. The clean room, the hospital, the data vault all descend from the same medieval logic of enclosure. We sterilize environments to protect against infiltration, but we often forget why. We act as though cleanliness itself was sacred rather than functional. And in doing so, we repeat the old mistake, confusing symbol for substance, fear for method. Aviation makes this confusion visible. The aircraft, our most sophisticated vessel, is a cathedral of controlled environments. Every cable, sensor and filter exists to maintain an artificial equilibrium. Pressurized air, stable temperature, balanced voltage. But the same warmth and vibration that sustain its operation attract life. Rodents, seeking shelter and texture, find their way into the labyrinth of conduits and panels. When we neglect the true reasons for these barriers, the consequences can be quite serious. Small intrusions, like a single rodent or a bit of dust, can compromise the entire system, revealing just how fragile our controlled environments really are. A single bite through polymer insulation can expose conductive copper shorting circuits or corrupting signals. An invisible act of gnawing becomes a measurable deviation. Flickers on cockpit displays erratic data, interrupted autopilot commands. Here, the danger is literal. It is not a metaphor for moral corruption, but a mechanical event with physical consequences. The rodent that chews through wiring reproduces in miniature the plague's original lesson. Impurity is not an idea, but a condition of neglect. The rat was never a symbol of evil. It was an animal acting within the world's natural logic, exploiting human inattention. What made the plague deadly and what grounds airplanes today is the same omission, failure to see maintenance as morality. The moral is not to condemn contamination, but to prevent it. That distinction marks the true philosophy of purity. When purity is treated as abstraction, it becomes dangerous, fuel for prejudice, fear, and superstition. When treated as discipline, it becomes the foundation of civilization. The same act that once saved lives in plague-stricken cities, cleaning surfaces, sealing containers, isolating spoilage, now preserves the functionality of engines, circuits, and data systems. Yet even in our technological age, the ancient confusion persists. We praise purity as virtue, but we forget its labour. The forgotten labour is vigilance. Purity in its genuine form demands attention, not devotion. It requires constant interaction with the material world, not withdrawal from it. The technician opening a panel to inspect for corrosion is performing the same gesture as the medieval custodian scrubbing a monastery floor. Both are guardians against entropy. Both resist the slow infiltration of decay. The difference is that the technician knows what the monk could not, that cleanliness is a form of engineering, not of salvation. To understand this is to restore purity to its proper scale. The rodent in the wiring is not an allegory, it is a reminder. It demonstrates that systems, no matter how advanced, remain biological in their vulnerabilities. Airplanes are habitats, laboratories are ecosystems. Warmth, vibration, and waste energy sustain more than machinery. The more perfectly a system isolates itself, the more it invites what it excludes. The problem is not contamination itself, but the arrogance of forgetting that contamination is inevitable. The rat, the shipworm, the microbe, all are agents of the same truth. Order requires care. The plague revealed it through devastation. Modern engineering rediscovers it through interruption. When a jet suffers violent turbulence and dozens of passengers are injured because a hamster gnawed a bundle of wires, that event reenacts the old lesson in a new register. The catastrophe of the Middle Ages returns as tragedy, and the principle is unchanged. Civilization persists only through cleaning, maintenance, inspection, the quiet rituals of repair that prevent collapse. This is the forgotten meaning of purity. It was never about superiority, only about survival. The medieval association of rats with moral failure obscured the deeper reality. That purity was not a sermon, but a sanitation protocol, a method for keeping the world functional amid its own decay. The disease was not divine retribution, but ecological feedback. The same holds true today. When a rodent infiltrates an aircraft's circuitry, it does not mock human order. It participates in it, reminding us that maintenance is our only form of mastery. To recover purity from metaphor is to recover a more honest ethics, cleanliness as continuity, not as condemnation. The rat's danger was always literal. It taught us that life, left unattended, becomes the agent of its own undoing. What we now call systems engineering is the modern language for the same knowledge once expressed through broom, cloth, and prayer. We can no longer afford to forget it. Purity, properly understood, is not transcendence, but attention. It is not about who or what is unclean, but about what must be kept intact for life to continue. Every wiped surface, every sealed cable, every inspected valve is an act of remembrance, a tribute to the real lesson of the plague. Civilization survives not because it is pure, but because it keeps cleaning. The danger was never symbolic. It was and remains alive. There is no dark metaphysical force causing our planes to fall out of the sky. It's just rats. It's always just rats.